All right, everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming. This is our second life skills class. So if you don't know me, I think almost everyone knows me. I just met Kim over there. So my name is John Clements. I'm the lead planter and pastor at Northwind. So we haven't actually launched yet. We're going to launch, the goal is next Easter. But in the meantime, we thought we don't want to wait to launch to start doing ministry. So we came up with these ideas like, what can we do to help people? And we said, I know, we can help with some basic life skills. So a couple weeks ago, we had a battling anxiety class. And that actually, we have that video up on our YouTube page now. So if you go to our YouTube page, I'll tell you about that in a second. You can go watch that and download the handouts and get that benefit. And we have a few more up and coming. Just to let you know before we get started, you got a blue folder. Hopefully you got a stress ball and a pen. There goes your stress ball. Whoa, there it goes. Just so you know some of the things that are inside of it. You got my business card that has my contact info on it, if you need that. You're going to notice that there's two 3x5 index cards in here. So what's that for? We're going to have an Ask Me Anything session at the end of this. That's going to be our finale. So what we're looking to do is if you have a question that you would like to know the answer to, maybe it's related to anxiety or resume or finances or some other kind of basic life skill, or just something that you think would be a good topic to discuss, just write your question down, maybe write your name, so if you have any questions, we can follow up with you. And we're going to put it in that box back there that looks all fall decorated. So the idea is to get all of your ideas, and then we'll go through them as like a panel setting when we do our Ask Me Anything. So that's what those are for. And then, of course, there's a Northwind flyer that we've got that you should have a copy of. The reason this is here is because on the back, another thing we're doing is a community survey. And what we're asking people to do, and this involves asking you guys, going door to door, some other avenues, is just to take a minute to fill out the survey. So you can, if you want, write it down here on the card, or you can just get your phone out and use the QR code. It'll take you to a link where you can fill that out. We just want to know what we can do to help. That's really kind of our big question right now, is how can we do ministry that will help our community? So I would highly encourage you to just take some time to fill that out when you get a chance. And then finally, because we are a church and we do believe in Jesus, as important as building a resume is, we know that Jesus is more important. So our gift to you is the Gospel of John. So if you need an extra copy, you can have it. If you know someone who needs it, you can give it to them. And we just want to make that our gift to you. Okay. So as I mentioned, you can go to our YouTube channel. You can just search up Northwind Community Church. You can find it there. And you can find our Battling Anxiety video. You'll also be able to find this session on there once we do the video editing, and also the interviewing for a job will be up there as well in the future. So keep your eye on that. You can also go to northwindcc.org/events, and that's another place you can go to find out about our schedule of these life skills classes. And again, that QR code that's on kind of all of our branded material will take you to where you can go to access those kinds of links. All right. So who am I and what am I doing here, right? So my name is John. Before I was a church planter and pastor, I spent 15 years in the corporate world. I started as a temporary employee in 2006 as in the field of quality, and I clawed my way up from temporary employee to hourly employee to salaried employee, and I eventually made more of a managerial type position. And so that was a 15-year career. And what happened was, when you are in the game that long, you kind of learn how to play the game. So part of what helped me advance from a temporary to an hourly to a salary to a manager was taking the time to learn how to craft a really good resume. In fact, the method that I am going to show you today is what I used. I actually got at least 2 jobs out of this, using this method over the time that I was progressing. So I know it works because it worked for me. So again, now I'm a pastor and a church planter, and I'm also a freelance proofreader and editor. So if you have, for example, a resume that needs looking at, I'd be happy to do that too. That's another one of my jobs. All right, so the question is, how can I help you today? Here's what I can do. I can help you write a solid resume. I can show you how to work within the typical job application system that is used nowadays, and I can show you how to improve your odds of getting noticed. And that's really what this is, right? We're trying to take the odds and push them more into your favor. There's always going to be factors that are outside your control, right? Sometimes you'll hear about a job and you'll apply for it. Well, guess what? The hiring manager already knew who they wanted before they posted. I know, again, I got a job doing that one time. So, sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it doesn't. Other things that are out of your control, you just can affect your process, your prospects, and you can't do anything about that. But what you can do is you can take what's in your control and you can increase your odds of success. And so it is with resumes. So I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that can help you to do that. And the goal, it would be to use that to get you an interview. Okay, how can I not help you? I'm not going to stand up here and promise you that you're going to get an interview for a job after you update your resume. I really wish I could. I can't. If I could, I would do that for all of us, right? And I can't guarantee that you won't still have to submit a lot of applications. Depending on what field you may or may not be in, the competition could be fierce, it could be not so fierce. And sometimes it just takes a lot of work to get a job, and there's just no overcoming that. And I can't make a company hire you. Again, if I could, I would, and I probably wouldn't be here. I'd probably be doing that for a living, but I can't do it. Sometimes, again, you just have to have that grit and determination. And again, what we're talking about is increasing your odds of success. That's really what we're talking about. And then a lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about today actually came from a book. This book is called Professionals Do This, Get Hired by Mark Lydon. It's about $10 on Amazon, so it's not like a significant investment as far as money goes, but it is a really good book. So if what I'm saying resonates and you say, I want to learn more about that, or I want to dig more into it, you can check that book out. So there's a QR code here. There's also a sheet in your folder that will have that same QR code next to the cover of the book. So again, just a really easy way to kind of take your phone out and get right to the link. So if you want to dig more into what I'm talking about, that's a really good way to start. Okay, so let's talk about key points. There's three things I really want to stress today or tonight and kind of drive home. And then the first of those is that the structure of your resume is as important as the content. And we'll talk about what that means. But yeah, it's not just a list of all the things you've done, but there's ways that you can structure it to, again, get the attention of HR, get the attention of the hiring manager. And resume writing is also tied into the online application process. We'll talk about that a little bit in a couple slides. And then this is probably the most key thing, is your resume has one goal, and that's to get put into the yes pile as quickly as possible. So we have to remember that your resume is not primarily a document where you list your work history, or where you list your achievements, or where you list your degrees or what have you. But instead, actually, this resume really has only one job, and that resume's job is to get you a job interview. And if it's not doing that, then you need to look at it and assess why. Or you might think of it this way, and you might say, your resume should tell a story. And the story that it needs to tell is that you are the best candidate for the job. And we all know that humility is a virtue. If you read in the Bible, it talks about Moses being the most humble man who ever lived, and it puts it in a good light. And I will agree, humility is a virtue. Nobody likes a braggart. That's not what we're suggesting. But what I am suggesting is your resume is the one time you don't want to be humble. And this is because you're acting as your own advocate. So imagine you hired a PR firm to represent you to companies. And what do you think you would want that PR firm to say about you? Would you want them to say, oh, well, Josh, he's a good guy. He's had some jobs. He's done some things. We like him. Yeah, you would fire your PR firm if they said that about you. Or would you rather have them say, dude, Josh is great. Let me tell you about all these amazing things that he's done for these other companies, and you know what? He can do them for you too. Okay, that's the kind of PR that you want from a firm. Well, in this case, you are acting as your own PR firm when you're writing your resume. So your job is to write a resume that tells a story, and that story is that you are the best candidate for the job. So again, I highly encourage being humble, except when you're writing a resume. All right, so let's talk for a minute about who's reading your resume. So when you fill out a resume, a job application, and you send it in, and it's almost always online these days, you've got a process to go through. So the fact of the matter is companies have a problem, and that problem is how do you sort through dozens or hundreds of thousands of resumes that are coming into your company without using up a ton of resources, because you don't want to have to hire, a staff of 100 HR people just to read resumes. And you also don't want to get sued for discrimination. You don't want to find some way of splitting the piles that could lead to a lawsuit. So now what do you do? Well, the solution that companies have come up with is HR hiring systems. That's what they use. So what is going to happen is HR is going to look at your resume first, and this person may not have any idea what your job actually entails. They're an HR generalist, let's say. They may not know a thing about software engineering. And that's not a knock against them, that's just the reality, right? They're not going to know every job. So what they're going to do is they're going to actually just be looking for certain keywords or phrases to ping. And they're just going to make tally marks or have software that compiles this. That's really what they're looking for. They're relying on the HR system to kind of weed out in an impartial way all these resumes. So that's who looks at your resume first, is HR, and then it goes through the system. Then it goes to the hiring manager. So the hiring manager gets a stack of pre-approved HR resumes from HR. And if you think about it for a minute, if you're a hiring manager, we know you're short-staffed, or else you wouldn't be hiring someone. That means you're probably busy, you're probably harried and hurried, you're probably overworked. And again, that's why you're trying to hire someone, right? So you don't have a ton of time to sit there and read every resume word for word. You're going to scan it. You're going to find ways to be more efficient, to just kind of go through them quickly and find the people you want to interview. So you're probably only looking at each resume for a couple of seconds. And I can tell you, because I've kind of been on both sides of this, maybe some of you have, but when you're reading resumes that are coming into a job and you're trying to sort them, I got to tell you, after a while, they all look the same. And you just start, the eyes glaze over, and you're just kind of like, yep. And it's very difficult to really even tell the difference between one resume and the next, or one person and the next. It's all kind of becomes noise after a while. And again, finding a resume that really gets you excited, that's even more rare. It just hardly ever happens. So this is really the obstacle course that you have to get through, or that your resume has to get through, right? You have to make it through HR, and you have to stand out to the hiring manager in probably just a few seconds. So if this is a problem, how do you solve it? What do you do? Well, we're going to take a look, since there's two obstacles, we're going to take a look at kind of a two-part solution. So the first solution is you have to get through the HR system, right? That's the clearinghouse, that's the front gate. That's what you have to get through first. And the key to getting a resume through is using the right keywords. And again, an HR generalist, they're very good at working in HR. They know all about HR, all about the laws and the policies and the processes. But they may not be very good or know a lot about the job you're applying for. So I had a 15-year career in quality. I did a lot of audits, a lot of what's called CAPA, corrective action, preventive action. And your typical HR person may be familiar with audits in some other portion of the company, but not necessarily process or system audits or manufacturing audits. So they're not going to know. And it's not realistic to expect them to know. That's not part of their job. And in any case, even if they did know, they are beholden to the HR system. So That's where we need to focus our efforts, is the HR system. That's the solution. So HR, they're looking for keywords for each job. A lot of times they're just looking for a percentage match, like, oh, these are the resumes that have the highest percentage matches of our keywords. They must be the best ones. Here you go, hiring manager, because that's what the process is. And I will say, some managers, I've known some hiring managers who will tell HR to give me all the resumes, even the ones that you filtered out. I'm not going to say all my hiring managers do that. I think some of them do, but some of them don't. So we want to make sure to get through this system. And this ties in directly with applying online, because that's how 99% of the job application goes these days. And really, applying online is nothing more than a test of your ability to match the language in your resume with the keywords and phrases in the job description. That's kind of it. That's the goal. Because again, if they're running this resume through a system, the system doesn't care. They only care that you're matching the keywords. So that's what we're trying to do. So let's talk about that. How do you do that? How do you find out these keywords? Well, the first step is to print out the job description. And I recommend printing it out on a piece of paper. So what you'll find is when you read something on a screen versus on a piece of paper, I think it's a little bit easier to read on a piece of paper. You kind of lose something when you read it from a screen. Plus, it's a lot easier to highlight and underline when you have a physical piece of paper. So print out the job description, or whichever job descriptions you are wanting to apply for, and then underline or highlight any words or phrases that stand out. And if you start looking at job descriptions in this way, and if you're looking at something in a field where you know a little bit about that field or you have experience, you're going to figure out pretty quick what the keywords are. It's the ones that keep showing up in every job description. So you're going to start identifying those and go, okay, I know that's a keyword. I know that's a keyword. So just, for me, again, I'm going to go back to quality because that was my career. If it says perform CAPA, perform audits, review documentation, like those are all keywords that would pop up in a lot of the jobs that I would look at. Other things for me might be, sometimes I'll say CFR, familiar with certain CFRs. Well, that's the Government Code of Federal Regulations. That's something I had to do when I used to work in compliance. So there's other things like that. You just start going, okay, I know this is a keyword, I know that's a keyword, I know that's a keyword. So you're going to underline or highlight as many of those as you can find. And then you're going to incorporate as many of those as you can into your resume. So instead of, basically you're going to look for synonyms, right, or things that catch your eye and go, oh, I know something about this keyword. I have experience with that keyword. I can start to tailor my resume around these keywords, and I can start to incorporate and get them into my resume, but then also show how I have done or know about these things. So you're going to put as many of those as you can into your resume. One tip you can do also is at the bottom, you can create an interest areas section of your resume, and you can just relist the keywords. There's no law that says you can't do that, and it's a way to kind of help you get through the system. So it might seem a little sneaky or nefarious, but it's something you can do, and it's perfectly legal and ethical and fine. So a good tip, again, you're just going to put that on there, and you're going to relist all those keywords and phrases, and it's just going to help you bump you that much more through the HR system. So that's phase one. That's the number one way to get through the HR system. So hopefully we're going to say you've done a good job with that. We're going to say you've put in all of these keywords and key phrases, and maybe you've made that interest areas section, and now you've got this resume that's going to hopefully get through the HR system. So let's say you get through the system. Okay, now you're in a pile of resumes for the hiring manager. So let's talk about that. Okay, so the key to making a resume stand out for a hiring manager is WIFM. Anybody know what WIFM means? What's in it for me, right? Here's a cold truth. The manager does not care how good you are. I'm sure the manager is a nice person. I'm sure they wish the best for you. but they don't care how good you are. They care what you can do for them. That's why they're wanting to hire someone, and that's why they're wanting to pay them money, so that they can do something for them. So that's the mindset you need to be in, right? It's not just that I'm a good person or I'm a good worker, but it's I am a good person and a good worker, and here's what I can do for you, right? That's going to get, that's going to get anyone's attention, right? That's like sales 101. Here's what I can do for you. So how do you do that? You do that by focusing on results. So here's what you're going to want to do. Whenever possible, you want to cite things like percentages, time saved, money saved, number of people reporting to you. Anything that can show a result is going to be beneficial, and anything where you can use a number is going to be even more beneficial. And when you're using numbers and symbols, you're going to want to write them as numerals and symbols and not as words. And you say, well, why is that? It's because the human eye is going to catch on to those numbers and symbols. I can tell you from proofreading, that's very true. Whenever you're reading and you come across a number, you're going to stop a little more on that than you would on a word, just because it looks different. So if you're going to say 75%, you want to write 75 percentage sign, not 75% in words. If you saved the company $100,000, let's just make that example up. You're going to want to write $100,000, not $100,000. I mean, you can. This is a great example because if you see that in a document or a piece of paper or on a check, right? That's going to catch your eye a lot more than just a couple of words, right? You're going to immediately go, whoa, 100,000 grand. I need to read about this. So that's why you always want to use numbers and symbols where you can. And again, focused on results. What's in it for me as the hiring manager? I want to know what you can do for me. That's the mode we need to be in. Another thing we can do to help focus on results is quantify them whenever possible. So break them down into a number of some kind of measurable outcome. And if you think about it, every employer wants to save money and reduce costs. Every single one of them. There's not a one that doesn't, or at least not one I've ever met that doesn't. So if you have done something to save your employer time or money, your resume would be a great time to mention it. Because if you have done it in the past, then you're showing the manager potentially, oh, maybe they can do it for me too. So you can take that result and say, this is my result, this is what I've done, this is what I can do for you. Another thing you can do is, if it is at all possible, to convert whatever savings you've done or whatever result you have into a dollar amount. That is what you should do. So here's an example. So a bad example would be, well, let's say you're in charge of a factory line at a factory, and you say, well, I reduced maintenance hours at company X. Okay, so you reduced maintenance hours. That doesn't tell me as a hiring manager anything. But a better example might be, well, I led a project to reduce maintenance hours by 25% in 3 months at company X. Okay. So now if I'm the hiring manager, maybe it's like, all right, okay, you got some leadership abilities. You were able to kind of quantify some gains. You were able to do it in a pretty short time frame. Well, that's good. But then I think even better is if you say, well, I spearheaded a 20-person improvement team to save company X $10,000 in maintenance costs in 3 months. Now, with those three, which of those three are you going to want to hire? Right, the bottom one, right? Because now we're dealing in cold hard cash, and my manager brain is going, oh, they can save me $10,000 in my budget. I can go buy the other thing I've been wanting to buy. Oh, like I want to talk to this person now. So again, if you can convert time saved into a dollar amount, if at all possible, do that. And so you say, okay, how do you do that? Let me give you a couple tips on that. You want to always use the fully burdened rate. If you're not in HR, you might not think about this a whole lot, but the total amount of money that a company spends to hire you is not your salary. Especially if you're a full-time employee with benefits, They're paying your salary, but they're also paying your insurance. They're paying taxes on your behalf. They might be matching your 401k. They've got to give you vacation and sick pay time. That comes from somewhere. There's Social Security they're paying into. There's all these other costs that are baked into hiring a person and paying a person. And that full amount is called the fully burdened rate. What you can do is you can either try to find a manager or an HR person at your current job if you have one and ask them what the fully burdened rate is. They might tell you. Or kind of a rule of thumb way to do it is you can just add 30% to whatever pay rate that particular job pays. So let me give you an example of what I mean. So we're going to assume that you work at a job and it pays $30 an hour. So you find a way to trim 5 hours a week off of your job duties. And you might say, okay, well, $30 an hour, I saved $5 a week, so 30 times 5, $150. I saved the company $150 a week. Well, okay. But remember, $30 is what you get paid. That's not what the company pays to have you as an employee. They actually spend about $40 an hour to employ you. So you didn't save $150 a week. You saved 40 times 5. You saved $200 a week. So you could say that on your resume that you saved $200 a week, or you could say that you saved $800 a month, right? Because $200 a week, roughly 4 weeks to a month, I saved $800 a month. Or if this is an ongoing savings, $200 a week is 10 grand a year. Oh, now you're getting a bigger number. So now you can say, I saved company X $10,000 a year. Again, which of those two statements, I saved the company 5 hours a week, I saved them $10,000 a year. Which one of those speaks more about what you did and the value you provide? The $10,000 a year, right? So again, you're not lying, you're not stretching the truth, you're not fibbing, you're not, playing fast and loose with the facts. You're just choosing to express those facts in a way that gets you noticed. So speaking of that, we always want to tell the story in the right way. Again, as just to drive home the point, okay, employers are going to value what you can do for them, not how good of a person you might be, however good you might be. So they want to know about accomplishments a little bit more than they want to know about responsibilities. Now that's not to say you should never put anything about responsibilities in a resume, but you need to focus on the accomplishments part a little more. You also want to use active voice, action words. Really in most kinds of writing and literature, passive voice is not used a whole lot. You want to use active verbs. So it wasn't that I received something or something happened because of me, but it's rather I did this, I did that. So active voice, active words. And again, numbers, wherever possible, if you can convert any number to a dollar figure that you saved the company, that's gold. I guess literally in this case. So again, here's an example. So you've got bad, good, and better. So bad, was given responsibilities for reviewing documentation. Okay, well I could hire a college intern to go look at documentation. I don't know. That doesn't tell me anything. A little bit better, reviewed a backlog of 200 documents and eliminated over 50 redundant work instructions. Okay, if I'm looking to trim down my overhead, that's a pretty good feat. I might be looking at this person. But even better is if you can convert that time saved through getting rid of those redundant work instructions to a dollar amount. Now you can say, okay, well I saved my company $5,000 annually by eliminating over 50 redundant work instructions that no longer required sign-offs. Okay, so now again, which of these three candidates would you want to interview? Probably the one that can tell you how much money they saved and why they saved it and how they saved it. So again, you're not lying, you're not stretching the truth, you're just telling the story the right way. You're telling the story in a way that a hiring manager wants to see it displayed. And this is one that I kind of struggle with. You can't expect a hiring manager to know how you can help them. You need to tell them. You might be the best software engineer on the planet. They don't know that. They don't know you. So you need to tell them how you can help them. And again, these are some of the ways to do that. So then you might have the question, okay, well that's fine, but what if I don't have the right experience? Okay, we're in church, I'm a pastor, I do not lie. Not a good idea. And of course, I think we all realize that if you lie on a resume, it will catch up to you. It may not be immediately, but it will catch up to you. So we do not want to lie. Do not fake experience, it will end badly. But what you can do and what you should do is if you don't have the experience that you need for a position, you can think creatively about the experience that you do have. And if you can look at your experience from some different angles, you might find that you have some transferable skills that maybe aren't apparent on first glance, but that might actually apply. And again, the key word here is transferable skills. So you need to figure out, okay, what skills are they actually looking for, and do I have anything in my past that shows that I have or can easily get those skills? So here's a couple of examples. So maybe the only job you've ever had is stocking produce at a grocery store. Well, instead of just saying that, you might say, okay, well, I actually managed over 100 types of perishable goods, and I reduced waste by 15% over 1 year. Again, you're not lying, you're not making something up, you're just phrasing it in a different way, in a way that hopefully aligns a little more closely with the job description. And Jen, I know you're laughing at this. I'm sure it's the next example. Okay, so this is a real one that I actually read. This is an honest to goodness true story. There was a lady who was applying for jobs, and she had been an exotic dancer. That was her career that she had. So what do you do when that's your job and you're trying to apply for something else? You get creative. So she could have put any number of things on her resume, but what she actually put was that she was the highest revenue producing performer. Again, what are you going to, she's telling the truth. She's thinking about it in a different way. And actually what happened was the job she applied for didn't work out so well, but the hiring manager saw this and was, struck by it, and he said, well, I know this other guy who's looking to hire some sales reps. So he gave that lady's resume to the other guy, ended up hiring her, giving her a chance, and she ended up becoming one of the highest revenue producing performers as a sales rep. So again, before you just write off a job and say, I don't have the experience, spend some time to think about it, because you might have more experience than you give yourself credit for. And again, the key is transferable skills. What have I done in the past, and how might it apply to the future? So then what kind of words should I use on my resume? Again, we talked about this a little bit, but just to reiterate, you want to use action words. You want to use active voice, not passive voice. You want to actually paint a vivid picture of yourself. You want to use power words, words that that present yourself in that light. I could have created a slideshow with words to put on your resume. It would have probably been 1,000 slides long. What you can do is you can Google words for resume, and you will find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of words that you can use. A couple of examples just to kind of get your mind going. Spearheaded instead of led. Forged. I forged a new process. I forged a new path. I navigated a difficult circumstance. I advocated for a solution to something. I diversified something. That's a good word to use. I authored instead of I wrote. I authored a text on such and such. Again, you can find many, many lists on Google of just all these words. And again, you're looking for powerful words, active words, words that maybe other people might not use, just anything to catch the eye of that hiring manager. and anything to put yourself in a positive light. So you'll notice that, right, I've given you all this information on resumes, and I haven't actually shown you a resume. And you say, well, that's fine, John, but what format should I use for my resume? What should it look like? Well, I haven't told you because there is no correct format. It doesn't exist. It's going to depend on a lot of factors. I don't know that any recruiters have a particular format in mind. I don't know that when I was a hiring manager, I didn't really care what the format was. I just wanted to be able to read the information. You might find that your format varies by industry, so that might be something to look into. Whatever the format is, though, you want to make sure that it highlights the important information. So the 8-second rule basically says a hiring manager is going to look at your resume for about 8 seconds, or a recruiter. So you need to think about, how am I going to convey the important information to these people when they're literally looking at it for 8 seconds or less? So I think that's going to dictate more about the format than really anything else. But you can look at examples and create your own from there. That's what I would recommend. A couple examples. So both Indeed.com and Monster.com. Again, you've got the QR codes in front of you. They're on the screen too. They have tons of resumes, and they're broken down by industry sector. So if you're looking for manufacturing, they have manufacturing type resumes. If you're looking for nursing, they have nursing. If you're looking for teaching, they have teaching. So rather than me, show you 1,000 examples of what it might look like, you can go there, you can kind of weed it down to what you're looking for, and you can find examples to start with. You can also find examples by asking friends or colleagues, particularly in the field you're applying for. And you can also find resumes on LinkedIn. A lot of people have their resumes up on, on their LinkedIn profile. So find someone who maybe has the job that you want to have and see what their resume looks like. So the trick is, or the process is, you're basically going to take all this information and you're going to write a baseline resume. Something that you can use as just a starting point. And then for every job that you're going to apply for, you're going to write a job-specific resume. So you're not just going to send your baseline resume. That's just for you to have. But remember, we're going to take each job that we're going to apply to. We're going to go find out the keywords. We're going to incorporate those keywords into our resume. Hopefully our baseline has enough action, powerful words, results-oriented type things in it that you can still have those in there and incorporate them. But you're really going to craft this resume for this specific job before you apply. Now, if you do this right, it's going to take about 45 minutes per resume to do this. So it's not necessarily a quick process. It's not terribly long either, but it does require some work. So what you'll end up with, again, is just a resume that's tailored for that specific job. And that's your best bet. That's your best way to get through. Now, let's talk about writing a cover letter. So it appears to me that cover letters maybe are a little bit less important than they perhaps used to be. That's been my experience. You may have found differently, but that's my experience. But some companies still allow you to, or many companies really allow you to submit a cover letter. So it's like if it's there, you might as well take advantage of it. So let's talk about, how do you take advantage of a cover letter? Well, a cover letter should list the evidence that you have that makes the case that you are the person for the job. So before they ever even look at your resume, use that cover letter to convince the person who's looking at it, this person deserves a closer look. So you're going to start off your cover letter with a few sentences that just state that you're applying for the job, and you want to actually write out in your cover letter the name of the job, just as it is on the job application. And if there's a reference number or a rec number, include that too. Again, we don't want your cover letter to get lost because somebody doesn't know what job they're looking at. And then you're just going to say, okay, employer, I'm excited to be applying for this job, and I think I'm a perfect skills match for the job. From there, you're going to include a table or a list that's going to lay out each requirement for the job and how you fulfill it. So again, you're making it easy for whoever's reading this to see a direct correlation between what they're looking for and what you have. And then finally, a short closing, to the point, include your contact information, and that's going to be your cover letter. So again, this is that chance, a second chance really to sell yourself, to get noticed, to show that you are the person for the job. So here's an example of what your cover letter table might look like if you were going to apply for an accountant job. So one requirement might be 10 years of experience. So you're going to say in this example, well, I have 13 years of experience in accounting at FANG level companies. FANG is Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. It's a fancy way to say big tech companies. So if that was you and you had that, that would be a great place to put that information. So if a requirement might be a bachelor's degree, you might say, well, hey, I happen to have a BA in finance from KU. So there, you put that in there. And maybe there's a certain level of knowledge of GAAP, generally accepted accounting practices. And you can say, oh, well, I actually have a certificate in that I got in 2019. So again, you're going to take the requirements and you're going to list how you fulfill them. Again, it's that 3x5 index card idea. So here is an example of a cover letter. You have this example in your folder, so you don't need to take a picture of this, but it's in there. So hello, I'm excited to submit my application for senior accountant at your company. I'm very interested in this job and working for your company. I feel that I'm a perfect skills match, and I've provided a list of my skills and experience for each of your requirements. And then here is the table that I just showed you. Your requirement, my skills and experience. I believe you'll agree that I have the skills necessary to excel at this job. My phone number is 555-5555. I look forward to following up with you about this job. Sincerely, Doug Jones. So it can be that simple, and it's just, again, another way to sell yourself, to get to put you to the front of the line. All right, let me give you a few other resume tips, maybe things you haven't thought of. The first one is cast your net wide. So you probably have a certain type of job or jobs that you want to have, and that's normal. You might think about some jobs that are at the periphery of those things that you might be qualified for, that you hadn't, that's not necessarily your dream job, but it might be something you could do and enjoy and do well. So really, if there is a job you qualify for or might qualify for, and you think it looks interesting, why not apply? So don't just limit yourself to your dream job. Another thing to consider is have someone review your resume and cover letter before you send it out. As a proofreader and editor, I can't say that one enough. You do not want spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, formatting mistakes in a resume. That's a very, very fast way to get your resume put into the no pile. So if you need to have someone else look at it, that's just have them look at it. And I can also tell you as a proofreader, you can't catch your own mistakes. I've posted things on Facebook on my proofreading site, and I've had errors in them because I didn't see them, and I'm the proofreader. So take the time, have someone else take a look at it for you. Get a hold of me, I'll do it for you. Don't be afraid to be bold or unique at times. I read one story. I think it was on Quora. Someone asked the question, what's the boldest resume you've ever seen? And there's all kinds of stories. But one of them kind of stuck out to me. One person put on his resume that he was the Time Person of the Year in 2006. Like, wow. Well, do you know who the Time Person of the Year in 2006 was? It was you. You. So that was the year when the internet was starting to get really big. And so anybody who was online in 2006, Time gave them the Person of the Year honors. So if you were alive in 2006 on the internet, you're Time Person of the Year 2006. So again, it's just a clever way. I mean, it got noticed. The hiring manager noticed enough to remember it and then write an answer on a website when someone asked about, that kind of a question. I'm not saying that that will get you a job, but it certainly made an impression. It might get you an interview. You never know. So if there's a way to be bold or unique that you can think of, maybe give it a shot. Maybe ask someone first if it's a good idea, and then maybe give it a shot. And then finally, use a professional sounding email. John Smith at email.com is a good email. FruitNinjaBoy at funnyface.com. I'm not interviewing that guy. I don't care what his resume looks like. So yeah, use a professional sounding email. It's always a good bet. Unless the job requires being a fruit ninja, I don't know, then maybe. All right, so final thoughts. You have to be patient. Trying to get a job can take a while. It can be frustrating and disheartening, and it can just be a long, slow battle, or you could get one right away. I've experienced both things. But you need to be patient. Keep trying. You might send out 100 resumes and not even get a reply back from any of them, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't personalize it. It's just the way it is. So keep trying. Don't expect to find your dream job right away. It sometimes takes us a long time, if ever, to find our dream job. But you can find jobs that are good and that you can enjoy. And then if you're qualified, apply, because what have you got to lose? If you can always interview, and you can say no. It's okay. You don't have to take every job that's offered that comes your way. All right, so I hope that gave you a little bit more of an inkling about some things you can do to take your resume, and again, we're trying to get it through the HR system, and we're trying to get it in the mind and brain of the hiring manager. So those are two obstacles that we need to overcome. So that was a lot of information and a little bit of time. What questions do you have?
I don't know if mine are. So you and I had talked briefly.
Yeah.
I was a dental hygienist, and I'm not looking to be a dental hygienist anymore, kind of thing. So maybe a hospital setting. Mukilteo schools are hiring paraeducators, bus drivers.
Yeah.
Lowe's is hiring. How do I transition from? Got any tips for making a dental hygienist?
Yeah, I think the key.
For some of those jobs?
Yeah, I think the key for you would be transferable skills. Being a dental hygienist is a very tough job, requires a lot of skills and education. So I believe you probably are qualified for a lot of jobs on that basis alone. So the trick is, again, what are the transferable skills that I know? So if you're a hygienist, you probably have really good people skills. Yeah? You're probably really good with helping people who are nervous to not be so nervous. So, if you want to go work at Lowe's and, roam the aisles and help people, like now you can talk about your people skills. If you want to be a bus driver, if you're really good at being a calming influence on people from all your dental hygienist work, maybe that's something you would stress. I'm a calming personality, and so all the rowdy kids in the back of the bus, I know how to project calm and how to kind of have a serene environment in a bus. So those are the things I would think about. I'm not saying those are good or bad examples, just those are the things I thought of off the top of my head. Trying to think about what else you said. In the hospital setting, I'm sure you know a lot about PPE and HIPAA, all those kind of things. You already know about those things. Yeah, safety protocols. Yeah.
Working with doctors.
Yeah, working with doctors. There's one you've got 31 years of experience with.
Managing your time with each patient.
Yeah. So again, I think the key is to broaden and just to take a step back and go, okay, this job requires these skills. How do I have these skills? So, and I think you probably have a lot of skills that you just have to kind of bring them out in your brain and go, oh yeah, I do have that skill, and this is how I have it.
So if
Yeah.
there's clearly a skill that you don't have,
Yeah.
is it better to make something creative or just kind of skip over it?
So here's what I would do in that situation. And this might be more of an interview type question. I don't know. We're going to do that one our next time, and that'd be a better time to figure that answer out. If it was something I wanted to put on my resume or interview, I guess there's two options. You could leave that skill out if you feel like that's a minor skill and there's other skills that you have. You could just not mention it. If you did need to mention it, you could say something to the effect of, well, I don't have this particular skill. However, in my last job, I didn't know how to do X, but I learned how to do X on the job, and I learned quickly and efficiently, and now I'm an expert at X. So I know I can learn, this skill here. That's how I would approach that.
Don't underestimate your volunteer experience too, because sometimes there are volunteer things that you've done, interesting, creative, that give you more skills that you didn't do on the job.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
Another good tip is if a job wants project management experience, anything can be a project. If you planned a wedding, that's project management. If you did a home renovation project, that's project management. So, right? So I'm not going to say that I wouldn't say that I'm qualified to have a project management body of knowledge certificate or anything, but I do have experience managing projects. Let me tell you about the time when I remodeled my house and how we did that. So yeah, again, think creatively. What other questions or comments?
How many pages should the ideal resume be? Short and sweet, or several pages with lots of experience?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I can say when I looked at resumes, I'm not sure I would get to page 3. I'd say however long it is, put all the important things on the first half of the first page, if at all possible. And then the rest of it will be what it is. But yeah, I can't imagine having a resume be more than 2 pages. But that's, yeah.
And put a page in 8 seconds, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't matter because you're inputting all that into a form anyway, but yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Is it worthwhile to show up at a place? Because I know so many things, like everything is online.
Yeah, most as far as hiring.
Is it still worthwhile to, hey, can I talk to the manager, I submitted an online application, just.
I think following up is definitely still worthwhile. Whether you go into the store or the location, or whether you call them up on the phone, or manage to track down an email. Phone's probably better. Yeah, I would say if you really want a job, following up is a very good way to get noticed. In fact, if you remember the book that I mentioned at the beginning, he actually talks about how to follow up if you wanted to go that route. Gives some really good ideas about how to do that. So I would check that out. Sometimes it can be hard, especially if you're applying for a job at a big company and you don't really know who's going to look at it. But if you can figure it out and you want to follow up, that's a great idea. All right. Great. Any final questions? If not, we can talk later. That's okay. All right. So again, thank you for coming. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions at all, just come find me. Again, my business card is there in front of you, and I would love to help you out some more. So thanks. We got more food and drink. Thanks everyone online for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.